Hello, welcome to Holistically Speaking. I am Morella DeVoe, your host. Our mission with Holistically Speaking is to be the avenue through which the voices of holistic health reach you at the time you need it most. And today we're talking about a very important subject. We're talking about bullying, and we're talking to someone who made me realize how little we talk about it and how we don't really teach kids how to deal with it. So I am so happy to have you, Tom Murphy, joining me today. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Oh, my pleasure.
I think that the work you do is about the most important work that's being done at schools right now.
Well, I would respectfully even disagree. I'd say it's probably the most important work being done on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people that there is no greater moral puzzle that we as human beings have the responsibility to solve. I tell that to kids because there are young men and young women that are taking themselves out of this world because of this issue. And if we don't think that this is the most important issue that we have to face and solve, we should probably reevaluate.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you, the minute that I knew I had to have you on the show was when I heard you say stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting in the audience and I heard you say stop, drop, and roll. How many of us know what that means? And what are the odds that we're going to burst into spontaneous combustion, or that we're going to burst into flames? But we all know how to deal with it. But we don't know how to deal with bullying. And that's when you just totally grabbed me, and I realized this is so important, because the odds of kids dealing with bullying are enormous. And so often we're dealing with the heartbreak of a child taking their life.
Yeah.
So, what is stop, drop, and roll of bullying?
So, I can ask any kid in America, 50 million students. I get a room of kindergartners, a room of 12th graders. What do you do when you catch on fire? Less than a second, they say stop, drop, and roll. They'll scream it at the top of their lungs. How many kids between the ages of 10 and 19 die in fires every year in America? About 135, right? So we teach 49 to 50 million students what to do when they potentially catch on fire and die. When I ask the same students, what do you do when you hear bullying, when you see it, when you're part of it, what do they say?
There's nothing.
There's nothing, right. The best that they can say is tell a teacher, which they're probably not going to do because it's not socially acceptable in their circles. So how many kids between the ages of 10 and 19 make the decision to take their own lives every year in America?
I don't know the statistic.
4,400 make the decision to take their own lives right here in our country, within our community. I know young men and young women that have done that. I know their parents. I know their aunts, their uncles. So we teach kids what to do when they potentially catch on fire and die, which probably is not going to happen. Right. But we don't teach them what to do about this thing called bullying. Now, some people say to me, well, wait a minute, Tom, not all 4,400 are bullied. And I would say, you know what, you're probably right. But I will tell you the one thing that all 4,400 of them have in common, and that's the lack of sweethearts and heroes within their lives. People that are there when they need that help. My partner in this organization, Jason Spector, he lost a kid on his wrestling team. I think he lost 4 kids in 1 year in his school in New York State.
Oh my God.
One of the kids was on his wrestling team. And he'll be the first one to tell you, he wasn't bullied, but the kid had no one there for him. At home, in school, no one cared. So there's 2 reasons kids don't, what we say, jump into action. Number 1, they're afraid that they may become a target themselves, right? And help other kids. It's really a myth. Kids that get bullied for a reason, because they're shorter, they're taller, they're smarter, they're heavier, their family situation. But the real reason kids don't jump into action and help other kids, and that's what we teach kids to do, is we've never taught them what to do. Right. We've never taught them what to do. And that's where Sweethearts and Heroes is really separated from just the awareness-based anti-bullying stuff.
Well, because usually it starts when kids are, 8, 9, 10, and they have no idea, they barely have any social skills. How are they going to know what to do? So your organization is called Sweethearts and Heroes.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you're teaching kids. That's the stop, drop, and roll, right? So what is the sweethearts and heroes concept that you're teaching kids about?
So there's two halves to our organization. Of course, there's an educational piece where we teach them about bullying, but we teach them about sweethearts. And truth be told, I'll kind of amaze you with this, and I'd say, where did the word come from?
The sweethearts?
The word bully.
Oh, gotcha.
The word bully was invented about 40 years after Christopher Columbus discovered America. And it originally meant sweethearts. And people do that, they say, what? They say, what? If you look it up, you'll find that it was an endearing term. So I tell kids all the time, if you were going to go to the school dance, you would take your bully with you. It's funny. So one of the first real part of what we do is we talk about sweethearts. And who are those people? You know, I can ask you who one of your 16th century bullies were and may still be. Now, hold on to that concept and let me tell you what a 16th century bully is.
Okay.
That's the person in your life, or the group of people, the 5 or 6 people. You wouldn't be here today if this person wasn't in your life. You wouldn't, they pushed you when you didn't really want to be pushed academically,
Right.
in sports, when you were down and out, when you didn't feel like, when you weren't motivated, they were there to say, come on. And it's easy to relate that back to a coach or a teacher, but there's also all kinds of people in our business lives. I had a very good business coach, mentor, that would send me books and he would harass me to read them.
Right.
And I would say, oh, come on.
He was in your face.
That's right, and he was bullying me the right way.
Right.
So one of the secrets to life in general is just surrounding ourselves with people that are better, faster, stronger, on an intellectual level, on a physical level, because as the famed philosopher Aristotle said, he said, we are what we repeatedly do. And if you're hanging around with people that are just concerned with sitting on a bar stool or partying or all of these things that really aren't moving the world forward, that's who you are.
Right.
You may think you're not, but that's who you are.
Right.
So the whole sweetheart part, we talk about that. And we talk about encouraging people. Because just telling someone, wow, I love those earrings today, can just change a life. One of my partners who I spend a lot of time with, a guy named Rick Yarish, injured in Iraq. He's one of our heroes that we speak with all the time. He's got this wonderful story. And when he was in recovery, I mean, 60% of his body was burned away. His ears, his nose. I think he actually was at Ignite.
He was at Ignite, yeah.
And Rick tells this beautiful story. About 7 months after his accident, he finally got to go out to a restaurant. He's in his wheelchair. Little kids were scared to death of him. This little girl with her grandfather looking at him, and the grandfather whispers, go say hi to him. And Rick's like, oh God, I don't want that. The grandfather says, go say hi to him. So the girl comes about halfway over. Rick turns, looks at her, and says, hey, how you doing? And she looks at him, turns around, and bolts back to her grandfather. And he knew that that was going to be the rest of his life.
Right.
And he hangs his head, and she gets back to her grandfather, and she goes, Grandpa, he's really nice.
Aww.
And that little girl that day changed the game for him.
Right.
Because he really had not accepted himself, because he knew little kids would never accept him.
Right.
That little girl was his sweetheart that day.
Yeah.
She'll never know it. That was 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
And those are just the little things
Yeah.
that sweethearts do.
The other thing that you're making me think of, and tell me if this is also a way that you conceptualize, the idea, all of a sudden you're telling me that the word bully it originally meant sweetheart. And what you got me thinking was the notion that when we overcome our bullying, when we grow up, when we look back and look at the pain that maybe we suffered through a difficult experience like a bully or someone who was kind of mean, it also helps to shape our character, like the coach who was kind of in your face sometimes. So in some ways, if we're able to help kids cope with it by getting stronger through that, is that also a way in which you think about it, or not so much?
I would say that we need to just be there for those kids that get bullied. I mean, that's the one thing that I tell people all the time, I can go to any person in America, 80 years old, 20 years old, it doesn't matter. Every single person has a bully story.
Yeah.
Right? I can ask you right now to think back to your middle school days.
Yeah.
And say, hey, tell me about one of your bully stories. And a lot of people say, oh, what do you mean? And I'd say, well, if it wasn't you, you had a sister, a brother, a cousin, aunt, and uncle. You don't remember what you watched on the television in the 6th grade,
Right.
but you can remember this one specific social, emotional
Absolutely.
event that you will carry with you for a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's like taking a piece of paper and putting a little tear in it. The paper will never go back to its
Right.
whole state again. That
Yeah.
tear will always be there. And that's what this thing called bullying does. And yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that we do is help a lot of people after the fact.
Right.
Take that episode and turn it into something good.
Right.
And help other people understand that this is just a moment in time.
Right.
That we do need to deal with. It's not fair. So I think we do turn around a lot of those
Yeah.
things and show people what the positive good that came out of it.
Yeah, because it's not about making it okay, but you know, like you're saying, do you have your story of bullying? And of course I do. You know, I have those traumatic middle school memories, and in the end, you know, I feel how they helped shape who I am.
Sure.
But the tear is there, so it doesn't make it right, but you can help the kids get better. So that's the sweethearts part of it, and then so what's the heroes piece?
So the heroes piece is really, Sweethearts and Heroes, like I told you before, one of the ways we really separated ourselves is we're not just an awareness-based group. We have a specific action plan. And one of the keys, if we're going to solve this, because I tell people we've kind of cracked the code on this thing called bullying. I mean, in our schools we have posters that we hang on the walls that say 0 tolerance, no bully zone. But 96% of the time bullies get away with it.
Right.
How is that possible? I can go to any school and give any kid a blank sheet of paper and say, it's anonymous. Can you write down, and think back to your middle school days, can you write down 3 or 4 kids that get bullied in your school?
Oh yeah.
Of course you can. Every kid in America can. Flip it over. Can you write down 1 or 2 kids that you think might be a bully?
And nobody writes any.
And everybody knows 1 kid in school who's a bully. It's anonymous.
Right.
So all of our children know where it happens, when it happens, why it happens, who it happens to, yet 96% of the time bullies get away with it. That doesn't make mathematical sense. It should be an impossibility. So with Sweethearts and Heroes, the thing that we've done is we have developed an action plan that helps kids. And the secret is you have to make it as easy as stop, drop, and roll. So they don't have to think about it. Because science has proven that peers intervene less than 10% of the time. Okay, peers intervene, we say jump into action, less than 10% of the time. But when a hero intervenes within 10 seconds, there's a magic window, it's only 10 seconds long, science has proven. When a hero intervenes within 10 seconds, it's successful over 60% of the time. Over 60% of the time.
Right.
But you have 10 seconds, so you got this terrible, awful, emotional, social event that's taking place. You see it across the lunchroom. You see it in the locker room. You have 10 seconds to react. Most kids, they're like the deer that's caught in the headlights.
Yeah.
And then it's over. It's escalated. That's the trick. And so we build superheroes with our ABC action plan.
Can you tell us what the ABC action
Yeah,
plan is?
I mean, it's a lot better when you see it.
Right.
But I'll give you one example. Like A, we tell kids is get the person away. Help them avoid the situation.
Yeah.
Because if I see this, if I know that Joe is getting bullied every day, because let me back up real quick. The definition of the word bullying, it's a blustering, quarrelsome, overbearing person who habitually and intentionally badgers smaller, weaker people, right? The number one thing that makes something bullying is it has to be habitual. It happens over and over again. A young man or a young woman doesn't wake up one day and say, geez, I think I'll take my own life because Sally called me dumb yesterday.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. They're programmed to believe these things.
Right.
So the reason I kind of digress back to that is because I've seen it happen every day at lunch.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen every day in the locker room. And that's the opportunity that you have to let a kid say, hey, I need to do something. I have 10 seconds to do it. A, get them away.
Right.
And then they go up. They don't even have to acknowledge the bully or the situation. I'm a popular kid in school. I walk up to this guy, Joe, that's getting bullied and say, hey, Joe, can you help me with my locker? Because I know it's about ready to go down again today. Can you show me where Mrs. Johnson's room is? Can you help me with this math problem?
Right.
And this guy, Joe, really has been stigmatized with this stamp on his forehead that nobody likes him. He's a weird kid.
Right.
And now here comes Tom, who's kind of popular. He's a good athlete. And I'm saying, hey, man, would you help me and take him away from the situation?
Right.
I mean, that's what a superhero does.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's and then the B stands for buddy, and we have some techniques for that. And C stands for confront the situation. And there's a lot of ways to do it. So it would take me an hour to,
of course.
We do some role playing with the kids and stuff like that. So.
But that's extraordinary. I mean, just getting that simple ABC, I can see the power that it has in just giving kids the strategies, having them be able to role play, giving them certain words. I can see how impactful it is. Can you tell us some stories of some of the kids that maybe have been through?
Yeah, well, I could tell you 100 stories. I mean, one great story I love is, that's just the surface of what we do. It's just the scratching the surface of what we do. My partner, Jason, who's a teacher, he's been in the laboratory for 16 years in the classroom. He's developed a ton of techniques for students, with students, teachers with students, because we do teacher presentations, we do parent presentations. So we get all these really neat techniques that are kind of outside the box thinking on how we deal with this, because the way that we've dealt with this for the last several decades, it doesn't work.
Right.
I mean, let's be frank, it doesn't work.
No.
So this is a good little technique I'll give people, and I give a lot of these techniques to parents. We had this mom that came and watched one of our presentations. She came up to us afterwards, and she was just in tears, and she said, my son is getting killed on the bus. I mean, by these girls. I mean, just brutalized. And the worst thing you can call a middle school boy is gay, and these girls are leaning over the seat and ruining his life. Yeah. And so what's our natural instinct? Pull the girls into the office, yell at them, talk to their parents, that's how we handle it as adults, because we try and solve the problem. But one of the things that we really believe is we're not going to solve this problem. The kids are going to solve it. Sometimes people think I'm nuts when I say that. Yeah. But the kids are going to solve this problem, because they know where it happens, when it happens, why it happens, who it happens to. So Jason, there's a law of teaching. And every teacher has 5 kids that will run through a brick wall for them. I mean, it's just a law of teaching. It doesn't matter if you're the worst teacher or the best teacher. So he's got this kid, Brandon, who was super popular in school, captain of these sports teams. So he pulls Brandon aside, tells him nothing about what this mom said or did about her son. And Jason says, hey, do you know this kid Mike? And he's like, yeah, he rides my bus, coach. And this is one of Jason's soldiers, would do anything for him. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know him. Hey, he rides my bus. Do you think you could sit with him on the bus on the way to school? Yeah, coach, what's up? Oh, nothing. I just want you to sit with him. So he sits with him, and a couple of days later, follow-up is huge. Tell parents and teachers that. Jason pulls Brandon aside and says, how's it going? Oh, he's pretty cool. We listen to the same music together. We like the same music. Okay, well, just keep sitting with him for me. All right, no problem, coach. So 8 months later, the mom writes us a letter. Literally, there's tear stains on the paper. Yeah. And she says, I'm sitting here crying because you saved my son from his private misery. Oh, wow. And all we did was empowered another kid. Yeah. Gave him the tools to become a sweetheart or a hero. Right. And might have saved that kid's life. Right. So. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because there are, as we know, there are so many kids that so frequently are taking their lives. It just seems like all too often we're hearing of another one. And it's, it's just a tragedy every single time. Now, because of course we see it with children so much, and I'm curious whether you are aware of adult bullying, and does it work the same? Do you talk to adults? Yeah, well, we've just really started. I've had so many, it's funny, when I say the mean switch gets turned on in the 5th grade. That's when it happens. And then it really peaks in about the 8th or 9th grade. Yeah. It's still in high school. Yeah. There are, I don't know, after 4 years of doing this, I'm not sure that there's bullying in kindergarten and first grade, but there's definitely bully behaviors that are replicated.
Right.
Things that kids learn at home, they come to school and do to other kids,
Right.
that I know eventually turn into bullying. But it doesn't end, and it goes on forever.
Yeah.
Remember, there was never a bully that was born. They don't hatch from eggs.
No, exactly.
They were created by anger, by frustration, by the lack of love. And if people never deal with those things, they're gonna have that problem forever.
Right.
And the kids that get bullied, they typically, as they grow up, they find that they gravitate to different social groups and they find a few ways to deal with it. But a lot of them never really let it go. I mean, a lot of them, their self-esteem. So it is in the workplace, and it is, I think, a tricky thing to deal with.
Right.
Because you got corporate structure now,
Right.
and human resources. So we're working on a few things, but we're really not
Yeah.
ready to jump off that cliff
Yeah.
yet.
So I'm wondering if you're willing to tell our viewers about your blue fingernail.
Yeah, I forget about them all the time. So the red one is just an add-on.
Yeah.
These are Red Thumb Reminder, nothing that we started, but I'm in schools, and it's important for me to tell kids that 11 kids die every day because people text and drive. And I have to say, even on television, I'm guilty. I've done it. I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I have 4
It's
kids.
illegal now.
It's illegal now, but it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You still see people do it.
Yeah.
And I tell people, say, why are your nails painted? And I say, duh, I'm a superhero.
Right.
And I say, save lives. See? So I don't
Yeah.
use my phone in the car. But this one is ours. We came up with this. I don't have a name for it yet, but I tell kids all the time, they're like, hey, why's your finger blue? And I say, you know why? Because I could kill someone with this one finger. And I kind of make it a little humorous at first to get their attention, but then I bring them back in. I say, hey man, I said, this is the finger you click a mouse with. And if John Halligan were here or Tina Meyer were here, they would tell you that no one beat up their son,
Right.
or their daughter, but it was the things that they said and did over the computer.
Yeah.
So I remind myself, number one, to be careful about what I send out. But I tell kids that once you send it, you can never take it back.
No. I was actually reading on your Facebook and some of the testimonials. I think one kid in high school was struck by something you or your partner said about how the emotional bruise of something that's said on Facebook can, takes forever to heal or can never be healed. And that just really struck him. So I'm wondering, with the shield that sites like Facebook or just social media creates for kids, where there's not an immediate reaction, where it almost seems like they can say anything, right?
Yeah.
How are you talking to kids about online bullying? And
This is how many episodes? I'll just tell you real quick.
Yeah.
I boiled it down to this. Is like this. I've said, look, those electronic devices. Every kid today was born with a mouse in their hand. Every
Right.
elementary, middle school kid in today, they were all born with a mouse in their hand. I probably couldn't feed myself without my microwave. So my point is, I was born with the microwave generation,
Right.
and I don't know how to live without it. These children don't really know how to live without these electronic devices. And we want to vilify them as adults. Oh, you don't need those. But just remember, that's part of who they are. It's part of their identity.
Right.
So keeping that in mind, the one thing that these electronic devices have done, they've removed the on and off switch, the reset switch.
Mm-hmm.
You and I were able to run home after school,
yeah,
reset. We had the weekend to spend with our families, reset.
Yeah.
Some kids will tell you that Mondays are the worst day of the week now. And not because they're going to school, but because they've spent all weekend reading about, and remember, it's tone deaf, so the reader always interprets it the way he or she wants to.
right.
So to me, that's the real danger of these electronic devices.
Yeah.
Yeah, people can hide behind them, but whether they're hiding behind it or not, the reader is going to interpret it the way he or she wants to. And that's where it becomes so devastating.
Right.
And then pour a few hormone changes and
Yeah.
friend changes in that cocktail, and that's when it becomes a mess.
Yeah, it's tone deaf. Punctuation also
That's
makes
right.
makes a
That's
difference.
right.
So what, in the last few minutes that we have on the show, and if you're thinking about the people who might be watching this on TV or on YouTube later, what is the key message that maybe is unsaid or maybe you want to
Sure.
add?
I'll tell you, it's easy for me. Albert Einstein figured this out way before we did. Einstein said this world is a dangerous place to live, not because of evil people. And the first time I heard that, I said, this guy Einstein wasn't too bright. But you got to read the rest of it. He said this world is a dangerous place to live, not because of evil people, but because of those who choose to do nothing about it.
Right.
Einstein said the bullies are not the problem in our schools. I'll say the same thing. We don't have a bully problem in America. We have a lack of sweethearts and heroes.
Right.
Our message works in kindergarten, and it works all the way to the Miami Dolphins football team. Remember the incident that happened there last year? You know, when the guy was getting bullied? How many of those other football players on that team knew that it was happening? I'll guarantee you 90% of the other teammates knew. But none of them did anything about it.
Right.
And I would tell, and when I get to the end of my presentation, before I do this poem that I do, I say to these kids, I look at them, I give them that Einstein quote, and I say, listen, the bullies are not the problem in your school. You are the problem, because you have made the choice not to do anything about it. And you can't say as an excuse anymore, well, I don't know what to do, because I've taught you what to do.
Right.
And there's other things that you can do. So, I mean, to me, I'd say anyone watching this program, I'd say you're the problem if you've made the choice not to do anything about it.
Right. That's so powerful, because we are all responsible for it.
Amen.
You know, we're looking at the bullies and pointing fingers at the bullies, but it's really all of us that need to do something about it.
And then when a kid makes a decision, a destructive decision to hurt themselves or someone else, we want to blame someone.
Right.
We want to say it was the kid that was provoking them. Yeah, but you knew that that kid was provoking him for years.
Right.
And you did nothing about it.
Yeah.
I tell teachers, don't walk by those wilting flowers. So you can't walk by wilting flowers.
Right, right. So I want to be sure to let viewers know of your website so they can find you, book you to come speak at their schools. So it's mostly schools that you're speaking at?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of corporate stuff too. I mean, everybody's got kids, you know?
Of course.
So if you're attached to kids, you got to hear this message. It doesn't matter. But it's mostly schools. I mean, I was just at 4 schools last week, and I'm at 4 schools next week, and mostly in New York, though, the funny thing is.
So to check them out, Sweethearts and Heroes, it's literally sweetheartsandheroes.org. And you can also find them on Facebook. You can like their page, Sweethearts and Heroes. And as you're hearing Tom say, to get you guys to come speak to kids and teachers and parents pretty much anywhere.
Anywhere.
This is a skill, you know, I want to find out where I can come listen to the whole A, B, and C, because it's like stop, drop, and roll. We all need to learn how to not just do it ourselves, but to teach our kids. And to, this is incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for joining me. I have almost rarely been as excited to have someone. I get excited for every show, but the thing is, the work that you're doing, I don't think anybody else is doing. Nobody's teaching kids, and like you said, this is saving lives.
Yep.
So thank you for choosing to be a hero and choosing to be a sweetheart for so many kids who are needing it.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.